Start Venture. Recording started. Thank you, Nina. Created an acceleration program that will generate new knowledge and upgrade and transform your innovative solutions into profitable business. The purpose of this panel discussion is to share knowledge on the selected topics from the mentors, as well as to discuss challenges of startups that want to expand outside of Macedonia. Unfortunately, due to private reasons, Iva Jankovic, who should have been moderator to this session today, is not able to participate, but she will be personally supporting the selected startup when the acceleration program starts. For those that don't know me, my name is Perica, and together with Nina and Alexander, we are the operations team of the Business Accelerator UKIM. I would like to welcome all the participants. I hope many of them represent startups that consider participating in the upcoming acceleration program. And also, I would like to encourage you to contact any member of the BAU team if you have questions about the program. I would like to welcome the mentors who will bring valuable knowledge throughout the program. I'm excited that the program both brings the experts and know-how from foreign markets and applies to the local challenges and needs. And on this way, preparing our startups to develop their business. I would like to remind you that this event is also recorded via Zoom, as you have heard, and also is shared using Facebook live stream. You can ask questions anytime during the discussion by either posting a comment on the Zoom chat, or at the end of the discussion when we'll have Q&A session, we'll have open mic for questions, and you can please raise your hand and we'll give the floor to you to ask questions either to the BAU team or to the mentors. Without further delay, let me introduce the panelists. First, I would like to introduce Mr. Jakub Gajšek, CEO of Ljubljana University Incubator. Jakub has been working in Slovenia in the region for many, many years, connecting investors and startups, and he focused mainly on helping academic entrepreneurship. Hello, Jakub, can you hear us? I hope you can hear us. Okay, I'm sure he will join. Next, I would like to introduce Mr. Wilhelm Lappe, a founder of Imperial Lab and the Biz Tour, mentor for startups and digital transformation, professor for many years and speaker. Wilhelm brings huge experience from Madrid and Berlin startup ecosystems. Hello, Wilhelm. Can you hear us?
Yeah, perfect.
Super. Welcome. Also, I would like to introduce Mr. Keith Ippel, a co-founder and CEO of Spring Activator from Vancouver, Canada. He's an ecosystem builder, keynote speaker, and advisor to many incubators, accelerators, donors, and governments. Some of you might know Keith from his previous experience in Macedonia. To you, Keith, good morning. I hope you already had your first coffee.
Good morning. Yes, first shot of caffeine is in, and I'm looking forward to the session today. Great to see everybody.
Thank you. Welcome. Last but not the least, I would like to introduce Mr. Kamen Bankovski, principal at Vitosha Venture Partners from Sofia, Bulgaria. As you know, every startup needs financing, and Kamen will share his experience in working with startups, in preparing them for and provide them with financing they need. Hello, Kamen.
Hi from me. Hello to everyone after many shots of caffeine throughout the day.
Welcome. I'm super excited to have such a diverse panel group representing ecosystems both in Europe and Canada. And what's combining them is a long list of diverse experience from companies from ideation and Series A funding. Exactly the combination of diversity in knowledge and experience, I believe, is key value that we'll be sharing today during the discussion, even more as lead mentors within BAU APA Acceleration Program. I can see Jakub now. Hello, Jakub, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry, I had some technical issues. I'm now with you.
Super, welcome. So let's start. First, I would like to invite Jakub to please introduce yourself to the audience by sharing what you do and what is the topic of the lectures that you're going to cover under BAU APA 2021.
Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Jakub. I am the CEO of the Ljubljana University Incubator. So I work a lot with very, very, very early stage startups, but I have experience in quite a lot of different stages of startup development, especially in the early pre-seed seed stage. I will be working with you on the value proposition front, meaning that we'll try and work to figure out together how you can really figure out what your customers want, how to get there. We'll be talking also with one of our portfolio startups, a company that launched about a year ago and recently raised a couple of $1 million after finishing Y Combinator, that we worked with since they were 2 students out of university, and now they're en route to employ dozens of people and raise even more money. So I believe it'll be quite interesting. If you haven't still apply, please, for the program. And in any case, I am reachable by email. So if you need something outside of the program, I'm more than open to help.
Thank you very much, Jakub. I'm sure that startups that will be selected to participate on the program that will be very keen to see your experience, and especially that for the participants, we'd like to inform that we are going to have a startup that will share their story from different ecosystems. As Jakub said, we are going to have a session with a startup from Slovenia that successfully undertook an acceleration program run by Jakub and his incubator, and was able to raise a couple of $1 million and to expand their business. Next, I would like to invite Wilhelm. Wilhelm, please introduce yourself and please share insights about the topics that you're going to cover.
Yeah, I'm working in different programs, from accelerators, incubators, and next level startups, usually based in Berlin. In the past, also traveling a lot to Spain, now doing everything online. Many of these programs are for European Union, so we have companies on market for all European Union. Some of them are in the ideation phase, and other ones are more in international growth. That is a little bit like repeat, the same things you do at the beginning, but in different markets. And this is what I'm going to talk about. So we will talk about market, competition, customers. So everything you need to understand a market, understand your position in the market, understand what you can offer, and also design your strategy to go to this market. So, and this is usually what we do, and we will have some companies or some examples that they did successfully in different countries from the European Union.
Thank you, William. Especially for startups in Macedonia, I think it's really crucial and important that they need to think big, that they need to think outside of the borders, not to focus only on the Macedonian market, but also to explore the opportunities in the countries in the region and beyond, and as you said, in Europe. So it's good that under this session, we'll be able to discuss with the startups, and they have learned more about the techniques and the ways they can develop a strategy for expanding on different. Also to identify what are their real customers, and of course, very important, was the competition. Thank you, Wilhelm. Kit, over to you. Maybe you can briefly introduce yourself and the topic that you're covering.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks. So for everybody, my name is Keith. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Spring. We're a Vancouver, Canada-based organization that helps entrepreneurs to change the world through innovation. We love to work with entrepreneurs, investors, and ecosystems to do that. We love to work with people who are early stage. So we have incubator program, we have an accelerator program, we do investment readiness training and support for entrepreneurs. And we've had the good fortune of doing that not only in Vancouver, but also in about 45 communities around the world. And as was mentioned earlier, we've had the good fortune of working in Skopje. In the past, I've had the good fortune of being in Skopje about 6 times in the last few years, not including COVID, of course, but looking forward to coming back very soon. And so the sessions that I'm going to be running are really focused on go-to-market. And in particular, where I'm going to be focusing is on sales and marketing and pricing. And so a few things to note on that: sales, really digging in from strategy right down to specific tactics and tools that you can use to start to grow revenue, especially as you start to think about expanding into new markets or launching new products. On the marketing side, really getting grounded in good marketing strategy, but then also digging into the process of digital marketing and some of the different channels and different tools that allow you to optimize your marketing process. And then pricing, in my opinion, probably the hardest thing to get right in business. There's a lot of great examples out there of other companies in our industries and other industries that we can learn from, but really getting that value proposition nailed can be a challenge, and it's really crucial to scale. And so those are really the three main topics that we're going to dig into in my sessions. I think the team at UKIM and myself have come up with a really great framework and structure for how we're going to deliver it as well, and I'm really looking forward to it. So nice to meet you all.
Thank you very much, Kit. Definitely, and we as an accelerator, we would like to see startups growing. We'd like to see a good product, but in the end of the day, we need to have customers that would like to buy the product. So sales is also a key thing in order to grow, as you said, for growth of revenues. But also I fully agree that pricing can be quite tricky and very linked to identifying the right customers and identifying the competition. So as you can see, starting from the value proposition and then defining the market, competition, customers, going through the sales and marketing, nothing of this can be done without financing. So the last segment that we are going to cover in more detail is the financing part. Kamen, you can briefly introduce yourself and also the topic that you're going to cover.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Kamen, and I'm the principal of Vitisha Venture Partners, which is an early-stage venture capital firm based in Sofia, Bulgaria. We are a first-time fund manager, so this is our first fund, which started in 2020, and we're going to be investing in 100 companies throughout our investment period, which ends in 2023. Our focus is pre-seed, seed, and early Series A. So we are very focused on working with early-stage companies from their conceptualization, from their idea generation, through their prototyping and MVP, throughout their already developed products, which they're looking to expand on multiple markets or trying to expand their product portfolio. And I've been involved in many startups and accelerators and mentorship programs throughout the years, and I've been in technology, finance, and startups for the last 10 years. And my main focus has always been early stage and, let's say, pre-seed and seed, working with acceleration programs previously. The main focus of the program that I will be participating in currently is, let's say, revolved around three topics. The first one would be business model validation and business model structuring, financial forecasting and modeling, and financial management. And all of those three are very much interconnected with the basic framework that I will try to provide, which is a way for the company to be able to quantitatively measure their growth drivers and their expense drivers so that they can be in control of their businesses and they can make sure that they are financially literate in order to maintain their business in a sustainable way so that they know how their company is at any point in time. Now, when we're talking about a business model validation, we're going to be talking about whether the product or service that you're delivering for the market that you've already identified is going to be able to be sufficiently monetized, or are you going to be charging enough in the way that you are planning in order to sustain your business? Then we're going to be moving on to financial forecasting, which is going to take on that idea, take your basic assumptions behind your business and behind your product, and forecast that into the future in order to see how that business model and how your business is going to develop in the upcoming months and years, in order to have a, let's say, vivid picture, which not always is accurate, but a picture of how the company is going to be developing in the next years. Now, that's important not only for a founder to see how their vision is going to materialize financially, but also for their fundraising efforts, because VCs always look at financial models when they're looking at companies, and they always include that into their application process. Next, we're going to be moving on to financial management, which might sound, let's say, a bit general, but the basic principles will be to make sure that you are monitoring and tracking the right parameters of your business at any point in time, and that you're doing that rigorously and regularly in order to make sure that you are in control of the basic indicators that forecast and that indicate your success and your, let's say, financial health. And that can not only be a financial indicator, but that can be a customer or a customer experience indicator. It can be an expense category indicator. It's making sure to understand what the key drivers behind your growth and your business are, and then monitoring those rigorously. So all of those three topics are interconnected through a quantitative framework that is very simple and easy to understand once you get the basic components of it. And it's applicable throughout the life cycle of a company and of a startup, and can be used to evaluate any business idea or any decision that a company makes. So hopefully it'll be very interesting for you, and it will be fun for me to go over.
Thank you, Kamen. Definitely, once startups will develop their product and once they will develop their sales strategy and marketing strategy, especially for the purpose of fundraising, we'd like to see numbers. And it's always challenging to translate the previous efforts into the financial projections, especially when you don't have a historical data. So that's quite challenging for the startups. And I hope that these sessions will be very useful for the startup, because based on the experience that we have, this is one of the areas that really startups are challenged, let's put it this way. Thank you very much for the introduction and for introducing yourself and the topics that you are covering. Now I would like to move a little bit to more general topics and questions that are related to the startups. I would like to start with Wilhelm and asking, based on his experience so far in the ecosystems, both in Berlin and Madrid, what are the main challenges or mistakes that startups do especially when they try to expand to other markets?
Yeah, probably you mentioned one of the big mistakes is don't think about, or maybe do it quite late, because we see many companies quite focused on their own market, probably because they know it better or they feel okay. Sometimes they're making it so difficult to grow or to make it internationally. Of course, there are other companies that they have like an international mindset from the very beginning. For example, that's something that you can find in Berlin easily, because many times in a team, you have people from different nationalities, and probably they have like a mindset of their own countries and their own markets. But I see that many times they don't focus on this. And other problem or other mistakes sometimes is don't have any strategy. So one of the first things we do is to select the country you're going to go, and to understand just one market. And okay, you're purely online, it doesn't matter where your customers from, it's just something like an app, or it's something that absolutely, with no B2B sales, for example, you can grow in different countries, but if it's something with B2B sales, probably you need to focus in a country, understand it quite well, wait for a time, because other problem we have sometimes is validating is how much time do I need to spend for validation. So understand to sales cycle, and make a decision, okay, this is the right country for me, this is not, and try to go step by step or country by country until you find one that is good for you. Of course, with a previous analysis, that makes sense, but probably it's like not being international, or sometimes being so ambitious, or not going to the right country, or not waiting to make decisions. So it's the timing here is also very important.
I agree, definitely. The timing, it's very important, and it's very crucial, especially for startups. And as we deal with startups that are based in their solution that is based on a certain technology, and we all know that the technology develops quite rapidly, going to the market and to define the exact timing, it's very important. For countries such as Macedonia, that is very small, of course, the expansion is crucial for growth. How it is in Canada? Canada itself is a huge market. How the startups from Canada focus on expanding abroad, and what are the, for example, main target markets? To you.
Yeah, thanks. It's interesting that you describe that. So Canada is a domestic market of close to 40 million people. The challenge with Canada is gigantic geographically, right? So to fly from coast to coast is a 6.5 hour flight just, within Canada. And so what's interesting is that Canadian entrepreneurs and startups always start by thinking about at a minimum the North American market. and getting proximity to market. So for example, here in Vancouver on the West Coast, you know, entrepreneurs are immediately thinking about Seattle, Portland, LA, San Francisco, and thinking about, you know, kind of American markets that they can tap into, because the American market is 10 times the size of our market. But for me to fly to San Francisco is a 2-hour flight. For me to fly to Toronto is 5.5, right? So when you think about the market that you're in, you're always thinking about a few things. You're thinking about, where is my target customer? First and foremost, it doesn't matter how close the city is or is not. So where is my target customer? Second of all, how can I really leverage where I am and where they are to seek market expansion? So in our particular case, I think what you find is that, you know, the entrepreneurs are really thinking about, you know, where's my target market? What is the fastest path to market? So I'm going to give everybody a couple of working examples. If you are in food and agri-tech in Canada, it's way easier to launch in Canada, grow in Canada, and then look at market expansion into other geographies. If you're in healthcare, it's way easier to launch in the US because of healthcare regulations. So thinking about some of the dynamics of the market are really critical as you go into this path. So where is my ideal target customer? And how easy is it for me to either get into the market and or launch? So these are some really important components that come into it. And I think the important part for any startup is, when you're looking at mentors, such as some of the examples that you have on this call, when you look at supportive investors like Vitosha Ventures and others, you're looking for people who can help challenge you on your thinking on where you should expand to next. They should also be supporting you to say, hey, what are my network introductions that I can make? How can I connect you to interesting people? How can I support you in this activity as you move forward? So those are a couple of thoughts that I have.
Thank you very much, Kit. Back in Europe, Kamen, you're from Bulgaria, member of the European Union. For the Macedonian startups, sometimes it can be challenging entering to the European market. And of course, the natural sense first is, let's go to Europe and then think if we are able to reach other markets. For startups that you have supported in Bulgaria, how do they see the expansion in other markets and in the region?
Well, I believe that Macedonia shares very similar difficulties that Bulgaria faces currently, and especially that Bulgarian companies faced a couple of years ago. But the main difference with Bulgaria is that we've had, let's say, a financial infrastructure and capital support for a bit longer, which means basically that has developed in itself additional components of the ecosystem that are supportive of those companies. But in our case, the capital came first, the ecosystem came second. So, but basically the issues that we share are very similar. And I think it again all boils down to what your target customers are and where they are and what your entire approach to determining your market is. We have examples of companies, I think, regionally that take on, let's say, an idea or a business model that is exemplified somewhere in Western Europe, and they try to implement it regionally, which is a model that we've seen quite a lot. And then again, you're sort of limited with the capabilities and the numbers of the markets that share a certain cultural similarity. Let's say if you're in Bulgaria and trying to expand to Western markets, that idea that you've developed from Western Europe, that's a model that we see quite a lot. And that in and of itself is a model that can be very feasible, especially if there's not a lot of local presence in specific industries here, because the big players are not attracted to, let's say, the country of Bulgaria, because they're targeting other markets that are bigger and more economically stable, let's say, before they reach our region. So that leaves a big gap for companies to be able to consolidate the region into these services that are not yet attractive for these startups in Western Europe. And we've seen that a lot. And we actually see that as not as a limitation, but as an opportunity for many companies. And we've seen that strategy happen a lot. And then after regional consolidation, they try to go westward, let's say, and try to tackle the bigger competitors in some of the markets which are not yet determined and which are not yet, let's say, won over by a big competitor. So we've seen consolidation regionally first, and then, let's say, tackling the markets which are not yet that don't have a determined winner yet. Now, for other cases where we've seen companies that have a direct, let's say, wider European region or United States or Asia, let's say those as target markets, they see Bulgaria and our region as a good testing ground because it's quite convenient for multiple reasons. Like Bulgaria and the region as well has a very strong technological foundation and has a lot of technological talent, which is, let's say, 50%, perhaps not 50% at this point, but it used to be 50% cheaper than they would have it in, let's say, Germany or the UK. And that presents an opportunity for companies to have a very good and strong team, let's say product team, to develop their products or services for much cheaper, use Bulgaria as a testing ground, as even a go-to-market approach techniques, and to sort of try to get some validation from the market and try to get some fit in the market before reaching Europe. So that's one of the reasons that it's extremely convenient for companies to use Bulgaria as a starting ground for Western Europe. Additionally, all of the other costs associated with starting a company are much lower than what you would experience in Western Europe. And in terms of ease of use of doing business for Bulgarian locals, it's still very convenient. You can start a business you can register a company for 3 days. Now, that's not the case for foreign citizens, but for Bulgarians, you can do that in 3 days. And for the past couple of years, we've also had a lot of capital in the system. We have mainly government support in developing the capital, let's say the capital access of our ecosystem, which helps breathe a lot of air into the system, and it helps, especially in the early stages, because the funds that we have currently are, let's say, the second generation funds, which are more focused now on Series A or later, or 500K euro or later. Whereas the previous funds, and even our fund has this component, were focused on the early stage. So that really developed this type of entrepreneur for the past 10 years, even with the first funds that we had, 11 and Launch Hub, developed the first, let's say, generation of entrepreneurs, successful or not, but they have gone through acceleration programs, they have gone through incubators, they have gone through financing, which has presented a good opportunity for them to learn and to have next generation startups that are more successful, and to be able to participate either as co-founders or as founders of companies that have a lot of experience in startups. So that's our experience is both ways, like even companies trying to consolidate in the region, or companies using Bulgaria as a good fertile talent ground and testing market before they expand to Europe. I'm not sure that I answered the question directly, but I'm not sure that I can give a, let's say, general answer in terms of all of the challenges that the companies reach.
So thank you, Kamen. What I hear is that startups from Macedonia should at least focus first on the Macedonian market to validate their idea, to obtain the first customers, think regionally, to expand their business, increase their growth, and then, of course, expand to other markets. What's the situation in Slovenia and for the Slovenian startups? Slovenia, it's more or less similar size as Macedonia. What's the approach of the Ljubljana incubator, and what's the approach of the startups that you have been working with?
Yeah, so it really depends on what kind of startups you're trying to build. I've heard the argument that Kamen also mentioned of here locally being a good testing ground, and I think that's an argument that most kind of undiscovered or smaller markets use. I've heard it used from people from the Netherlands or even from Germany and so on, basically from anywhere that's not the US or China, where they say, okay, well, locally we're going to test and then we're going to launch internationally. Though for some companies that might not be the best approach, because for instance, some companies have to immediately launch in the US because there's zero market locally, right? You need to understand what kind of customer you're looking at. And that comes back to what Keith was saying earlier, where you need to know where your customers are and go there as soon as you can. For the Slovenian situation, our government in its infinite wisdom has decided to not support startups, at least not financially in a venture capital sense. We have quite a lot of grants, which is can be helpful, but can also be really a big, burden of paperwork and so on. So generally, people who are good at applying for grants aren't good entrepreneurs. That's just fact of life. So, you need to be kind of careful what kind of government support you're wishing for. Hopefully now our government is going to slowly wake up, because the way things are in a relatively, in a global sense, capital poor ecosystem such as Slovenia, even though as a country we are, a little bit further ahead than Macedonia is, for instance, but not much in a global sense. The government has to step in and do something. What's happening currently in Slovenia is there's no kind of government-backed venture capital, but there are quite a few private initiatives. The business angels have really woken up in the last year and a half with the new president, who's doing a fantastic job. She's a very really, really cool lady that's done a couple of interesting exits and really pushing forward the ecosystem. And then you have a couple of founders who have had varying levels of success, doing international business, and then mainly really startups, so companies that were launched in the last 10 years. Some of them have exited, some of them have done well enough that they've built a small fund. So those are kind of the people running the capital game in the country. But then on the other hand, you have the government pouring in enormous amounts of money into mentorship and into grants and so on, which is maybe a little bit too much even. For instance, Slovenia, in a country of 2 million people, has 22 different incubators, all publicly financed. We do, I think the government finances between 40 and 60 early stage startups with a 54,000 euro grant, free money, which is, it can be useful, but it can be also a little bit too much. So capital is not the only thing you should be wishing for. What you should be looking at is how you can really get access to people who can help you, and most importantly, your customers, who they are, where they are, and how to get them in the quickest and cheapest possible way.
Thank you, Jakub. The Macedonian ecosystem, as you know, it's relatively underdeveloped. We have started to develop the startup ecosystem very recently. As in the case in Slovenia, we do have the Fund for Innovation, which is a government entity that really pours a lot of money to support startups. Sometimes it is a grant scheme, but we are hearing more and more, especially from the government, that the private capital needs to come into the market. So the startups, especially to face private capital and with all the requirements that the private capital have instead of the government money, which sometimes are really, really free. I like what you pointed out, that some startups or individuals are really good in applying to grants, but not very good entrepreneurials. But I'm sure that even here at certain moment that will stop, and the private capital will dominate in the process of supporting startups. I know that US mentors are more or less aware of the ecosystem in the country, the level of the development of the startups. And I would ask, maybe I can start with Kit on this. What advice would you give to startups in Macedonia, having in mind the development of the ecosystem?
That's a big question. So there's a few things that I would say. First of all, revenue is your best friend, always, right? So if I'm gonna speak from an ecosystem perspective, my comment to you is, who cares about the ecosystem? So what I mean by that is the ecosystem is very important, of course, but the important part is you have a startup, you're trying to solve a problem for a specific set of customers, you're trying to solve that problem, and you're trying to get fair exchange of value, revenue, right? So my comment to you is focus on getting the product into the customer's hands and seeing if somebody's going to pay for it, right? The faster you can do that, the faster you can find out that what you have is real or not real. And so from my perspective, I think that's really important. And I think, just being really relentless about getting into the customer, talking to the customer, and getting feedback and then finding out what the customer really needs is so critical. And then as you're expanding, whether it is in North Macedonia, or it's, for example, expanding into Bulgaria or into Western Europe or beyond, what you're trying to pick up in the process is what are the commonalities between your domestic customer and the customers in those markets, and what are the nuances or differences. I think that's really critical to hone in on. So I think from my perspective, that's really what I would encourage in this process. There's a few things that I like to think about. One is, if you're not making money yet, setting a date for when you want to get to cash flow positive or profitability. And it doesn't matter if that's, a month from now or a year from now or whenever, but you need to kind of like set some really very clear targets about how you're going to get from here to there. And starting to build that kind of rhythm in the organization about growth, about revenue growth, and about getting to cash flow positive. The more that you focus on that, the more you create progress, the more you adapt. And then if you are, for example, looking for growth capital, then it's actually a way more productive conversation with an investor, because then you're actually giving them a very clear roadmap for how you're trying to get there. You're not just standing there with your hand out saying, invest in my company because I'm cool, right? Every entrepreneur does that, right? So what you want to do is say, I'm awesome. And the reason I'm awesome is because I've spoken to 150 customers. This is what they told me they needed. We launched it. This is the changes we've made. We're making money. Here's the metrics. Go. Right? Like, that's powerful. So notice in that conversation, I said nothing about grants. I said nothing about government regulations. I said nothing about ecosystem. I don't care. Neither do you. You're trying to not go bankrupt. You're trying to succeed and grow. So focus there. That's, as you can tell, I'm very passionate about that. And so there you go.
Thank you, Keith. So, Kamen, when startups approach you, what the advice that you will give to any startup that prepares for a fundraising?
Right. Again, a very big question, but I think Keith pretty much nailed it. I think that every time that, let's say, if we're in a situation where we're going to be talking to companies, I don't want to generalize in any way, but aside from all the things that we already discussed, we see a huge focus on the current product, let's say on where the product is going to go, on how big the idea is, how big the potential market is. But as Keith already placed it, it's very difficult to have that vision and that market that you think you have validated. And it's extremely important to be as quick as possible in launching something and talking to your customers with an MVP, with a prototype, and trying to get their feedback and to try to measure how that product fits with the market. Like the finding the product market fit is an extremely difficult thing, and it's an extremely important thing, and it's validated through certain aspects of your go-to-market. And you cannot do that if you're focusing on the product, trying to develop the perfect product for 2 years that you think is going to be the perfect product, and spend all that time developing something that might not end up being liked by anyone or adding value to that person. Because indeed, the idea is extremely important. However, that's the idea that's a hypothesis without a testing ground and without any validation of whether that is true. So I think doubling down on what Keith said, it's very important to put something out there as quickly as possible, identify your key hypothesis, let's say the hypothesis of how you're going to be adding value to your customers, and they're going to be able to and going to be willing to pay you for that value that you deliver to them. If that's your hypothesis, then you need to test that as quickly as possible and to see whether that value is there and whether that is actually accepted by your customers. And that validation is extremely important. So to push as quickly as possible to reach your customers, your target customers, as quickly as possible, and try to determine whether those are your target customers or whether you're actually able to deliver value to them. And that happens through a couple of ways. One is through talking to your customers, getting some feedback that they present in a, let's say, verbal conversational way, and to try to measure as much as possible about them, and to try to measure how you've done with the different iterations of your product, and to try to increase those things that are important to your survival and to the stability or to the goals that you've set. It all starts with your goals, right? So you need to determine your target market. Like, again, every time that we speak about this is the key and most important thing about a company, trying to identify their target market and who their customer is, and get the conversation going with that customer, whether that's qualitatively or quantitatively. Start doing that in order to get some feedback from the market, and try to validate your hypotheses and your growth drivers, and to be setting goals for yourself. However, to be willing to adopt those goals and to be willing to adapt your strategy on the basis of what you learn about the market. Because you might listen to your customers, you might talk to them and just say, these customers don't know what they're talking about. I just should go and find different customers. Now, that might be true, but the thing that you actually learn might be that the customers that you're targeting don't want the solution that you're offering. So one needs to be very wary of that, and be able to accept feedback from the market that they receive early on, and try to modify their offering as best as they can in order to find the market fit. And it's not just the market fit is not just taking the product and delivering it to different customers, but maybe adapting to the customers into your target market.
Yes.
And to be able to be as flexible as possible, but do it quantitatively and do it strategically.
So, Keith, comment. You have raised. Actually, you have provided quite detailed advice to the startups and what they should be focusing at the beginning. Let me link Jakob's and Wilhelm's answer to Ivana's question. What is the most common mistake startups make? Jakob, maybe you can start first.
Yes, actually, I think I've already mentioned this a little bit in the chat, but I believe it's what Carmen was just talking about. I actually believe, if I understand correctly, the statistics say that it's either launching too late or not figuring out, or not having an actual market to address, which comes back to launching too late, because otherwise, if you weren't too late, you would have figured it out already that there's no market. So I think it's really famously, I don't know, one of the famous investors said that if you're not a little bit ashamed of your product when you're late, when you launch, you're launching too late. I think it might have been Fred Wilson or some one of those guys. Anyway, yeah, so I would say it's that. What do you think, Wilhelm?
Yeah, I agree. So of course, one of the main problems I've seen at the very beginning is with the team. So have the right team is important. So in the first 6 months, 1 year, sometimes you find problems because you don't have the right team. And the next problem is that you run out of money, and probably it's because you're not doing sales. And yeah, also connected with, we talk about the ecosystem, the grants, the help. It's a moment that you see people in this ecosystem that they're an accelerator, they're doing something, they're doing another prototype, they are pitching, they are winning kind of award, but they are not in the market. So it's a big mistake. I think that sometimes we are involved and we're still focused on the problem, but not focused on the solution or the product. And that is related that you're not doing sales, probably you're not going into the next step with your customers, and you're, let's say, still talking about, and you know, in some ecosystem, if you have money or if you get some grants, you can survive. But at the end, you are not adding anything to the value, and you're not adding value to the market. And connected with the timing, that's probably that you're missing an opportunity. And I think it's a mistake. I see people that they start with some, like, let's say, so fast things, but then in a moment, they are a little bit trapped, probably because they don't find the right product market fit, as I will explain it, but maybe because they are not really brave doing sales, so they're trying to avoid this point. And they'll start like in a moment that they're talking about and not going to the next step and really providing a solution in the market and getting money for the customers. That at the end is the goal of a company.
Thank you, Jakob. Thank you, Wilhelm. Maybe I can encourage all the participants to post questions either in the chat box, but also please just unmute yourself and ask questions to the mentors, or if you have a question to the BAU team. If not at this moment, then maybe we can trigger the participants to ask more questions if we go a little bit back to the program. And let's dive into your session. a little bit more deeper. You have explained very well what topics you are going to cover, but once startups will finish your session, what is the main takeaways they will have to have, and why do they need it? Maybe Kamen, we can start with you. But before that, we have a question, so our participants can be a priority. From Jacqueline, how much is the team member relevant for the startups, and it is an age limitation for supporting startups? Kamen, maybe we can start with you.
Sure thing. Well, we typically age is not something that is detrimental to the success of a startup, because let's say in the various ages a person can come with, let's say a younger founder might be extremely energetic and be willing to put in a lot of hours in order to develop their idea, but they might not have as much experience in go-to-market or in the specific field that they're trying to develop a company. Whereas, let's say a more serial founder might have experience in running a company, have operational experience, might not have as much stamina. But age is not really detrimental, but we can say that to answer the first question, the team is extremely important in our assessment. Maybe we didn't focus on that enough in this discussion, but all of the things that we're talking about, let's say identifying the correct market, identifying the correct business model and how to monetize, identifying your sales strategy, all of those things need to be executed by a team that is stable and coherent and is able to actually execute that strategy and to be able to build on top of all of those things. And all of those things are a function of the team and how well they're able to function together, how determined they are, and how they're able to reach through the various, let's say, stages of the startup. Because especially in the early stages where we're all focused on here, it's a very difficult thing. It's extremely difficult. It has a lot. We all hear the amazing stories of a startup founder who found their first company when they were 6 in a garage and they were a billionaire by 8. But usually those are the outliers, and usually it's a rocky road. You have a lot of challenges that you need to focus on, which teach you a lot of lessons. You become better with each iteration, but it's a challenging course. It's a challenging path. We have a lot of companies running out of cash, let's say going without salaries for months before they reach their next financing round. And again, success stories, companies that are successful that have reached horrible and very difficult moments in which, if the team wasn't stable enough and wasn't determined enough, those companies would have failed. So I think we need to all, let's say, and we try to do this, we've seen this a lot, but we need to differentiate from that success story that we're used to seeing, the boy genius that is now a Starship billionaire, and focus on real people and real problems, real challenges. And those real people are the team that is going to be working through this. So it's extremely important. I cannot stress it enough.
Especially for startups, and when defining their value proposition, of course, and the investors or other stakeholders are looking for the team. Jakob, so based on your experience, how much is a team member relevant for the startups, and is there any age limitation?
Thanks for asking this. I was just gonna barge in anyway. I think this is one of the most common questions that we get asked, because at every single event, every single investor ever says, oh yeah, the team's the most important. But what does that mean? You know, how can you actually apply that to your startup if you don't have any experience? In my opinion, it comes down to two things. One is show track record with your team members. Show that you've done something together. It can be anything. It could be that you've done something together at college. Maybe you've had, I don't know, we did a gardening class together, something. Just show that you haven't only met 5 minutes ago. Why is that important? Because there's going to be a lot of ups and downs in a startup, and you need to show that you've maybe had a fight before in your life and you still kind of get along. So you're likely going to have another fight, and after that fight, it's important that you still get along. So that's one thing. The second thing is that you really should have the different skills needed to develop a company. So you shouldn't only have technical people. You shouldn't only have business people. You should have, you know, a more complete kind of spectrum of people in your company. And in terms of age, I think that's much less important than the desire to learn. Why are mainly younger people doing startups? Because younger people are generally, and this is a generalization, and it's wrong as any generalization is, but generally younger people are more open to new learnings, and you need to be open, and not just open, you need to want to actively learn all the time if you want to be successful in a startup, because that's what the journey is basically.
Thank you, Jakob. I can see questions related to product. Maybe I can refer this to Kit and Wilhelm. Kit, maybe first you. When we could say that the startup have found a product market fit?
Yeah, I'll jump in quickly. I know we're kind of running out of time, but with product market fit, typically think about product market fit as you have identified a target customer, that target customer purchase your product and continues to purchase it. So there's either repeat purchases from the same customer or multiple people, multiple organizations.
I think we lost Kit.
Kind of ongoing growth of the market. Not to be confused with product business model fit, where you're kind of proving the revenue model side, because that usually for most people comes later. So I think for me, that's the really important part is you need to be able to show the repeatability there. Now, in some industries that will get defined by a certain revenue number. So for example, if you're doing an e-commerce product, it's not uncommon to say the absolute minimum monthly revenue you need in e-commerce to show that you have product market fit is 25,000 euros a month. Sometimes people will define it as high as 50,000 euros a month to say, I have product market fit. I've clearly identified a customer, they're buying my product, they're buying it again, they're telling other people they're buying it again, and so forth. So I think to me, that's probably the most simple way to describe it.
Thank you, Kit. Wilhelm, maybe I can link this question with the following one. So the first question was when we could say that startups have found product market fit, but there is interesting question also from Ivana. What's crucial when launching a product that has not been presented on the market before?
So the product market fit is, it's true that sometimes you have some metrics, but you don't know the metrics sometimes in your market. So I define many times validation as signals, because we don't have like enough data to say this is true. And I guess this product market fit is happening when you are not pushing a lot and things start to happen. So, at the beginning of a business, you need to do everything by yourself. So find any one of the customers, call everyone, and push a lot until the things start to happen. And it's a moment that someone that you don't know is calling you. So we always say at the very beginning, the first customer that you have no idea who he is or who is coming from. So things are happening. Or maybe you have like more opportunities and people are asking you about your products, or they're asking about an upgrade or something new, so that you don't need to push a lot and things start to happen. Of course, that should be something, as Kate explained, that is happening constantly, because sometimes you have this good week and two of these things happen and you think that you get it, and next month nothing is happening. But when regularly you see this kind of traction that we mentioned, and of course that's different in B2C, because when you have a lot of customers, you can follow a little bit more the metrics. When you are in B2B, and that depends on a couple of contracts and a couple of operations, it's difficult to get this kind of is happening or not, because maybe you have 10 customers in a year or 20 customers in a year. And in this case, in B2B, it's more difficult, because if you have 2,000 customers per month, you can follow a little bit more the metrics. I find it a little bit more challenging in B2B. And yeah, you say for the introducing a new product. So absolutely a new product always is a challenge. So one of the first things I did was related to Second Life and virtual worlds like 15 years ago, and probably still today is not the time. So when you introduce something absolutely new, you need to talk so much about what you're doing about, and sometimes you're losing a little bit more the focus. So the perfect way is to have something new in the market that people could understand a little bit. And I think it's just, so people many times, they don't like to know what is your product about. They would like to know how this product is helping them. And if you explain to them what is the profit they will get and why what you're doing, whatever it is helping them, probably it's easier to introduce. But with something really new, sometimes for small companies, we spend a lot of time or a lot of effort trying to explain the global vision of what we're doing, and we forget a little bit to focus in our own product. So it's a challenge.
Thank you, Wilhelm. Before posting a question to Kit, Jakob, we see. Thank you very much for your time. We know that you have to leave, but we'll have a lot of opportunities.
Yes, I do have a really quick answer to, I think, Vesna that was asking how you should convince customers to buy your product. At the beginning, you're not really convincing customers to buy your product. You're trying to learn as much as you can from them before you start selling. Because in order to really, really sell, you need to know what will make them click. So with the first couple of discussions aren't sales discussions. They're discussions that are meant for you to learn as much as possible.
Thank you, Jakob.
And thanks for having me. I'm sorry, I really have to run, but looking forward to working with all of you. And if you need something, go to our website, lui.si, and my email's on there, and just email me. Or ask Peritz or the team, and they will give you my email.
Thank you very much, Jakob.
Cool. I'm just going to quickly jump in as well. Just on what Jakob was just sharing as he was wrapping, just to make it clear to everybody, and this links to the program. What Jakob was saying is those early conversations are not necessarily sales conversations. They're what we call customer discovery conversations, right? So we're not asking them to buy, we're asking them, what is the problem, right? How do they define the problem? And then as we present the solution, how do they react to the solution? So our goal here is to really learn through that process. And I think that's really critical. And this would be the type of process and the type of framework that you're going to learn in this program. And so I think, for those who haven't yet applied to the program, I think it's a really, really great example of why you would consider being a part of a program like this with the mentors that are here, because it's really a great way to say, you're not the first tech entrepreneur, right? There's thousands of tech entrepreneurs that have gone before you and thousands of startups that have gone before you. Your goal is not to figure out how to do it for the first time. Your goal is to learn from those who have gone before you, to avoid rookie mistakes, and to accelerate the path from here to clarity. Whether clarity is stop because the idea is terrible, or whether the clarity is my idea is amazing and now I'm proving it with product market fit and now I can grow, right? So I think that's a really important point. So I unfortunately have to run as well too, but for everybody, I just put my LinkedIn profile into chat. Please do take a look at my profile, as well as the other speakers that are here. They're absolutely fabulous. I think this is going to be an incredible program. I'm really proud that not only myself, but also my organization Spring is a part of it. Thanks to Ukim and EBRD for allowing me to be a part of this. And do reach out, definitely keep in touch. And I hope to see you all in the program. So
thank you very much, Kit.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
For all participants, we'll keep you 5 more minutes. And Nikolai, I saw your question, and it will be answered by my colleague Nina, and I would like to invite her to present the application process and give you an overview of who can apply, what do you get from the program structure, key outcomes, and especially the key dates. Nina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Perica. Thank you very much to the mentors. This is a great discussion. I'm really enjoying it. And thank you very much for your willingness to share your experience and knowledge and give great advices to the potential participants. So I would, we are really running out of time. I would just quickly like to present the program once again. So let me share my screen. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see the slides.
Okay, great. So the Business Accelerator UKIM is launching a different type of acceleration program called APA2021. It is better tailored to the needs of today's startups and offers an intensive guidance and mentorship, as well as providing time for implementation. The program runs with 4 content modules in order to cover all aspects of product, company, and founders acceleration. Let us quickly remind ourselves of the topics. So week 1, with the help of our mentor, Mr. Jakub Gajszak, covers the topic of value proposition with regards to your product's value proposition, the problem it solves, and the needs it satisfies. Week 2 with Mr. Wilhelm Lappe is reserved for a detailed analysis of market, competition, and customers definition. In week 3, with the lecture of Mr. Kit, we will talk about your sales and marketing, as well as pricing strategy. While in the fourth week, Mr. Kamen Bankovsky will guide us through the financials of your startup, creating the business model, financial forecasting, and the financial management. So BAU, in cooperation with EBRD Star Venture Program through APA 2021, aims to generate new knowledge and turn your innovation into profitable business. Besides the expert we have engaged as mentors, each week a successful startup will be present to share their stories, successes, and failures. What we offer is the possibility to be coached by global mentors and gain a professional mentoring, gain experience from successful startups, a possibility for sharing the network of the mentors and our network as accelerator as well, opportunity for gaining a financing from the business accelerator UKIM, and continuous support. What we ask from you is to have an innovative idea, dedicated team of 2 persons minimum, which will attend the workshops and the mentorship program, a vision for upgrading up to 5 years of experience in the startups, and 51% of Macedonian ownership. What will happen? So up to 15 startups will be selected for the part 1 of APA 2021 based on the following criteria. So an ambitious, innovation-oriented, and most of all dedicated team with the ability and desire to create value. Then an innovative technology-based solution with a minimum MVP or innovative business model. Value proposition with a clear competitive advantage, market potential, and business model. Of course, all of these segments will be subject to reassessment and help for improvement by our mentors and the operational team of Business Accelerator UKIM, which will be constantly at your disposal. So up to 15 startups will be invited to participate in the part 1 of APA 2021, as I mentioned, and it will take place in the 4 weeks of October. After this phase, the first demo day will take place, where all of the 15 startups will have the chance to pitch their product or idea before the BAU board of directors and the mentors. Out of them, 3 to 5 startups will be shortlisted and will have the possibility to continue this journey by participating in part 2 of the program. In this phase, the areas for improvement for every startup will be defined, and through personalized mentorship sessions, the startups will be delivered to the point of being investment ready. This 30 plus 30-day program is designed in a way to support the selected teams to co-develop their solutions with mentors involved in the program. The whole acceleration program, due to COVID protocols, will be performed online, and therefore teams do not need to be based in Skopje for the duration of the program. And also there is a continuous support by the BAU operational team for the whole duration of the program, and on the technical side, online platform will be used for document and task management. At this point, I would also like to emphasize that those startups which will get to the part 2 of the APA 2021 will get an investment from Business Accelerator UKIM in an amount of 25,000 euros. So this is meant for all of the shortlisted startups that get to part 2, 3 to 5 startups. And at the very end, let me quickly go through the timeline of activities with you. So the call for application was opened on July the 19th, and it is open for almost 2 months until September the 12th, when the deadline for submission of the application is. The selected startups will be informed on September the 20th, and the kickoff event and the start of the acceleration program will be on October the 4th. The first demo day, where 15 startups will pitch their product and idea, and 3 to 5 startups will be chosen with the best potential, will be held on 3rd of November. And the start of the second part of the acceleration program, the individualized mentorship program, will be started at the 15th of November. The whole program is expected to finish on December the 15th, when the second demo day is held and the best startup is selected. So that would be from my side.
Thank you, Nina.
Thank you, everybody.
For all participants, first apply. I hope you will be selected. Then over the course of the first month, advance your business and work hard. And BAU will offer an initial financing of 25,000 euros. And I hope that throughout the session, you have heard many good reasons why you should apply to the program. Again, if you have any questions, please contact any member of the team, and we are more than happy to assist you and provide more detailed information. At the end, I would like to thank all the participants that have joined our discussion today. I would like to thank our mentors for sharing detailed information about the content of the program and shared their experience from the ecosystems they work. Again, for the startups and idea holders, I hope you have heard many reasons why you should have joined the program. And the call for applying is open by September 12th, so you have a lot of time. The application format is very easy to be filled in. It will provide us an initial information about yourself. And in the end, I would like to thank you and have a great rest of the day. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.